everybody, and welcome. This is Bob. I didn't want to get going too much there, but we got a special guest tonight, and his name is Sauce or Soslan if you use his full first name. And I have no idea how to pronounce your last name. You've done it a couple times for me, but I still don't remember. I want to take a crack at it, though. Is it Timulson?
It's Teemanson.
Teemanson.
Yes,
So it's not a short, it's a long E rather than a short one.
Yes.
So okay, I was gonna put you put the Sauce Report on there. I was gonna put Savage, but we can put Sauce Report up here. How's it going? You're in the ocean, having fun?
I am. Well, and I got to tour I was able to tour a couple things and be able to try new things. I learned how to drive a Bobcat for the first time.
I saw that on the socials. I was thinking I was going to write something, and I thought, no, I'd be rude because I don't write too much on your stuff. But I was going to write and say, hey, anytime you want to come over, I got some projects for you.
Well, how about that? Hey, I wouldn't mind coming on over for a project.
I got a few things I need to dig up, and I don't have a Bobcat, but I'm sure we can wrangle something. No, I don't.
No? Well, hey, if you want to, I'd be more than welcome to. No, and then I also I went out to breakfast yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And breakfast was good. And she was such a sweet gal. I'm good friends with her and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. You seem to be playing the field here lately.
Well, you know what? Practice makes perfect, I guess. You get to play
practice makes perfect.
You get to see what you're what you like, what you don't like, what kind of, for instance, what kind of conversations you're going to have if you're not interested in that person. So you have as drive a conversation as you can. For instance, I have to tell you something. So
sure,
I liked a girl and stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I don't really when you don't have feelings for anyone. So you know what I started talking about? Plain tires.
What? So you were talking jets or
airlines,
Cessna or airline, airliners.
Yeah, airliners. So I'm like, hey, did you hear about the airline the other day? I guess they got brand new tires for one of the 737-900 series, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, wait, what? She's like, are you not interested in me? I'm like, well, you didn't see them in your stuff? I'm like, really? I'm not. I'm like, you know what? You have a good heart and stuff, but I'm not. Let's move. You're not the right person.
Well, let me ask you a question. This was breakfast, right?
She was a Democrat.
No. I was going to say, what happened the night before if you're having breakfast together?
No, okay. So this was not the recent girl. No.
Okay.
No, this is no. So this girl I worked up with camp with, she was a lifeguard, and I worked up camp with her and stuff. She is absolutely the sweetest girl. She, and
not sweet enough, apparently.
Well, no. Well, this one. I mean, she's a cute girl. She's a sweet one. But my other one before, her name was actually Brenda.
Okay.
Brenda's the one that she didn't tell me that after the fact, and I'm like, so if I may ask, what political party are you? And she's like, I'm a Democrat. I'm like,
what are you asking that question for? What does it matter? You can still get along.
Okay, Bob, have you looked at my social media content? Do you honestly?
Yes, but we all got to get along.
Isn't your wife like a wacky progressive that's a wacky cat lady, or no?
I don't know if I would say she's a wacky cat lady, but she does. We do have cats. And
okay. Are you serious? How many? 8 or 12?
No, we just got a couple cats.
Okay, that was a.
I think I talked about them before. I don't remember, but yeah.
I was shooting in the dark. I didn't actually expect to have cat. You're not a cat person. You don't seem like a cat person.
Oh no, I am an animal person, no matter what.
Are you a dog person?
Sure, we've had dogs, we've had cats. Yeah.
I absolutely
Now,
love dogs.
Miles, like he has had big cockroaches and all kinds of praying mantis and all kinds of insects and whatnot. Most of our
Oh
pets have
boy,
been
that
furry in some way. So we've had hamsters and dogs and cats mostly. But we're getting
that's
off the
scary.
subject here. So the subject was though that you're like, well, she's a Democrat, and then you're like, oh well, just because I'm a fairly conservative, essentially a conservative person or a conservative, in my beliefs, that I can't get along with somebody like that, or what?
Oh, so I'm sorry. I think something happened and stuff. Okay, so what? Can you repeat that again?
Sure. So I said, so this girl said she was a Democrat,
Bre-
and you're like, oh,
Brenda.
yeah, I can't get along with a Democrat. I'm like, you can. It's perfectly okay. Just because you're a fairly conservative person doesn't mean that you can't get along with somebody that's not. That's not the thing, is it? You're
I
limiting
mean,
yourself here.
but have you looked at some of the conservative girls?
No, I haven't.
I mean, some of the. I mean, so
but
so here's how I look at it though. Like I looked
but I
at
mean, you
this.
can't. I mean, that to me that seems a little bit harsh. I mean, you're drawing lines in areas that they don't need to be drawn at this point. Who was the? You're probably too young for this, but do you remember back in the Clinton time, which you probably were like a toddler or something back when Clinton was
Monica
president? But
Lewinsky.
no, no, no. I'm talking more politics. So there was a guy. Oh gosh, I wish I could remember his name. He was a Southern guy, and um, I think helped Clinton. He always talked like this, and he's anyway. I can't Carville. Is it James Carville? Is that his
I have
name?
no idea. I'm not a person. I wasn't alive
Oh,
back
okay.
then.
Well, anyway, he was married to. He was very liberal, but he
Okay.
was married to someone who was very conservative. And in fact, they were both kind of, kind of like behind the scenes people with politicians on either side of the. James Carville, yeah, he had a show and everything too, I think. Anyway, but they were behind the scenes people, but they were totally opposite for their politics.
See, but that I mean, I feel like you could get along with that like a couple years before. That'd be completely fine. But now you
Mm-hmm.
look at it in this day and age, everything's so polar opposite. I mean, it's like,
No, it's all the same. That's the beauty of it is there really no. I mean, yes, there's some other issues, but everything, but really, that's all the same. There's
oh,
people
you don't
who
think?
tend to go more conservative, people who tend to go more liberal, and that's just the way it goes.
I well, well, and then look at
I
Brenda though
may
too.
I may have shortened the interview here with you by saying things like this. I don't know.
No, you're good. Well, and then okay, so here's another thing about Brenda though. That was a problem, and I learned a major lesson from her too.
Okay.
Okay, so one thing I found out is that she was needy. Like she was,
Okay. Well, see now you're getting into relationship territory. So
yeah. So
so yeah, if she's
not only was she
needy,
a
then
Democrat,
yeah.
she was like needy, and I'm like, wow, you must be. And I'm like,
So
and
you,
that's
you
what I
need to
found.
lead with that. You need to say, "Oh, she was a needy liberal."
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, so she was looking for handouts too. That's what needy liberals do in a
Oh, okay.
relationship.
Oh, that's a whole different ball game there.
Yeah. So I mean, it didn't really help though either. I mean, I was like, I mean, you're not really. I'm like, so what are you needy about? Like every time I would like leave and stuff, she'd be like, "What are you doing?" Like she'd blow up my phone. I'm like, girl, I'm like doing something. Like, geez, get off my back. Like,
I'm busy.
yeah, like my goodness, like, holy cow, like I'm
I'm
flying. Like, what?
saving the world. What are you doing?
Yeah, you're clearly out at Starbucks with the weird, weird rainbow people and stuff.
Oh my goodness. You're hilarious.
Uh,
So we should say, so people don't know who you are. So I know Sauce through Savaged Unfiltered, and he's been on before on with Miles, and Michael and Leonard or
Joseph.
Joseph Leonard, yeah, and so forth, and they're. And then now you're calling now is the sauce report, is this your new thing? Are you still doing stuff with Michael and Joseph or no?
Well, I am actually. So what
I know
happened
you
is,
were, but I just wanted to throw it out there.
oh no, I am. Um, so I want to tell you like the reason why, like, so Michael's doing his own thing, like he's in the movie industry, and
Right.
I'm like, that's I heard that's like a rigorous, like it takes a lot of energy and time out of you and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what happened is, so I started podcasting a long time ago actually. I
Right.
think about the reason why I started podcasting was because I was paralyzed from the neck down,
What?
and yeah, so I
Now
had the
wait, how you can't toss that out? What? How did that happen?
so
And
I
here you are
started
at
like,
you're in the water in the ocean on this picture here, and
yeah, well
you're
that's actually,
paralyzed. Did you hurt your
yeah.
back?
So I received the anthrax vaccine back in 2019 when I was in the military, and
Oh, yeah,
when the new
guinea pig.
yes, so I was forced to get it, or I had my other option was get a dishonorable discharge,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was like, I'm not looking for a dishonorable discharge because that's worse than a felony. So
Right. Well, and you don't get any money or anything.
yeah, you don't get anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened was I ended up getting it, and then 2 months later of getting it, I was leading a Bible study, and
Mm-hmm.
next thing you know, I fell down, and I was paralyzed from the neck down, and and it took me over 2.5 years to do a full recovery. So
That's wild.
I had to relearn how to talk, relearn how to walk, relearn how to like bathe, and relearn how to go bathroom by myself. I was like a born again person. It's like I came out of the womb, and I
So you really? So did they tell you it was because of this anthrax thing, or
no, they
is this
came
what
up with
you're?
some. No, that's what the civilian doctor said. It was from the anthrax vaccine,
Uh huh.
but the military stated that was like FND, which is functional neurological disorder. And what that is that the reason why they said it was an anthrax vaccine because it did so much damage to my body that I
Mm-hmm.
lost so much weight. I used to be 210, all
Mm-hmm.
like in muscle mass. And but when I was in the hospital for all that duration, I went from 210 to 129 in less than it was the fastest weight loss program I've ever been on.
Oh my
And
gosh! I couldn't
yeah,
believe you've been 210 to be honest with
I
you.
don't look like it. No. Well, and it was like, and I didn't know if I was gonna make it out alive. And so I was in the Japanese hospital, so
Wow.
I can understand what people were saying. And if I didn't have my faith in God, like if I didn't have my faith in Him, I don't know where I'd be at
What?
because
I mean, you were even overseas, so
I was
you were
stationed in
stationed in
Tokyo,
Okinawa or
Japan.
something.
No, Tokyo, Yokota Air Force Base, which is in Tokyo, Japan,
Oh,
which
in
is in the
Tokyo. Wow, well, that's cool. But
yeah. So
not
it was
seeing it from the hospital window is not cool. But
no, and so I got to experience my first hurricane, by the way.
wow,
Yeah, in Tokyo, Japan. Not one hurricane, but two hurricanes. One was in the hospital, and the other one was actually on base.
oh, strange.
Yeah, isn't
So
so?
you collapse. You get stuck in the hospital. Everyone's speaking a different language.
Yeah,
You're laying there and you can look around, but you can't move anything.
yeah. I could like lay and I knew like and so what happened is I knew my body was deteriorating really fast because
Yeah.
I got onto my health got so bad that they only did liquid IV. That's how bad
Hmm.
it was,
Really.
and that's what you call desperate measure. And
Right.
so I was like on oxygen. I was like on the whole works, and I was medevaced back to the States. And so I was medevaced, and what another medevac means is that you go on a C-17 or C-4, which are huge cargo planes, and
Hmm.
from there you go and you land. We landed in Hawaii
Hmm.
because my health declined even to be in a worse shape, and I was like like my health was too bad, too severe for flight, and so they were that worried. So then we went to Yokota Air. I went to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii I went to San Diego, uh,
Hmm.
their Air Force base, and then from there I went to San Antonio, Texas. I was at Brooke Army Medical Center, which was a beautiful hospital, by the way, and it's like a maze.
Hmm.
It's one of the biggest hospitals in the Department of Defense. Actually, it is the biggest hospital compared to Walter Reed. But
Hmm.
either way, I mean, I was in the critical care unit, ICU unit for quite some time. I was in room 333, which is on third floor in the ICU, and it was like very like it was very bad.
That's a bit ominous, don't you think?
What's that?
333. It's never good to have these numbers that line up like that.
Yeah, why is that?
It's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, I never noticed that.
Yeah.
But either way, what happened is I went to acute rehab facility the first time. I thought I was making some change. I thought I was making healthy progressions. But then what happened is then I had a kidney, like my kidneys like completely like stopped functioning because
Right.
I,
His kidney started having kidney failure, which is,
yeah.
pretty detrimental.
And so then what happened is I went backwards. So then I went and back to the hospital for quite some time. And from there, I lost my memory. And that's where I lost my memory. And I'm like, I didn't know who my parents were. I didn't know what my name was. So, for instance, you could come in and you could talk to me and like you could tell me all these wonderful things. And
Mhm.
then literally 10 seconds or 5 seconds from when you leave the room and you come back in, I didn't know who you were. And instead, I would say, okay, what are you doing? And who are you? And it was that kind of a situation.
So, so did you, so did you have any kind of brain damage because of this, or just because? Do you think it was because of the kidney failure, and then you're basically, if your kidneys don't function, you build up toxins in your blood, and those toxins can go to all over, your organs and your brain and
Mhm.
everything. You think
So
that
there
was the
was,
cause, or what did they tell you?
well, there was, if you look at the MRI scans and if you look at my scans and stuff, you can see a major black dot on the right side of the brain, and
Hmm.
that was actually brain damage.
Right. So then you have
Yeah.
bleeding in your brain.
If you want, I mean, I wouldn't say bleeding, but like actual dead brain cells, like a dead brain
Well,
part.
usually what happens if you get dark spots on your MRI and so forth, well, it's damaged, but typically it's damaged because of uh, bleeding. I think. I mean, that's my understanding. I could be wrong. I'm not a doctor.
I'm not a
I'm
doctor
not an
either.
official doctor. I'm only a doctor when I talk to Michael.
Yeah, you're Doctor Love when you talk to Michael.
So that,
But
I mean, that is horrendous. I mean, so, and I mean, you don't have an easy name to remember, to be honest with you, because I can't remember it. But to have that happen, I mean, so then you basically had, it's a form of aphasia, I believe. I can't remember which one it is, but they talk about Bruce Willis is having aphasia, right? So he's got brain problems that deteriorate so that he can't talk or he can't comprehend things
mhm.
and so forth. And so you had something probably similar because you had memory problems, so you had short term memory problems. So
Yeah.
you literally, I don't know if you've ever seen, I mean, you lived it, so, but you probably can't remember living it. But have you ever seen anybody with short term memory problems?
Oh yes, I have.
It's kind of, I mean, for not to make light of it, but it's kind of funny because you leave the room and you come back, and go, oh, hey, who is this?
Yeah,
Uh,
and you're like, no, I already like, all right, no, I've walked with people. I'm like, okay, great. I just literally saw you like 10 seconds. Okay, you know what your name is. Okay, don't play around.
yeah.
And it's definitely frustrating because
Well, some
it would.
people will write notes. If they have memory, they write like I know I saw this thing on this one lady who just did all these post-it notes, and they were posted everywhere in her house so that she could know what she's doing from moment to moment.
Yeah, it was a very scary moment in my life actually.
So, what was the turnaround then? I mean, what happened to bring you? I mean, you're on the brink here.
So what happened is it was my faith in God that, and it was my like of course it was my faith
Well,
in
now how
God, and it
did
was
you know
also my,
that? If you couldn't remember your name, how do you know that God was helping you? I
what
mean, not
it
I'm
was
playing
more.
devil's advocate a little bit here. So,
No, it was actually more the doctors. It was
okay,
like it was the amount of like acute rehab facility, the amount of like memory I had to do, and speech therapy, and it was
yeah.
all that. So it was like heavily amount. It was like heavily memory of the speech and heavily memory and acute rehab facility and like occupational therapy, and it
So
was all that.
they got your kidneys kick started or whatever again, right?
Yep, yeah,
You didn't get a
and
transplant or anything, did you?
no, I
Oh,
didn't go.
okay.
No, it wasn't that bad. Thank
Okay,
goodness.
good.
Uh, um, and it wasn't that bad. But it did take quite a bit. It was kind of extensive. But either way, I mean, like it sucked going through a acute rehab facility, like going 2 hours a day at like speech therapy. And
Mm-hmm.
so here's what my typical day looked like. So it's 2 hours of speech therapy in the morning, and then 2 hours of occupational therapy, and
Mm-hmm.
then it was another 2 hour, about 90 minutes, an hour and a half of physical therapy also in the morning. So we started at 7 in the morning, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like so long. So it was like 7 to 9 speech therapy, and then 9:05 to 11:05. It was occupational therapy, and then
Mm-hmm.
from 11:15 to around 1 o'clock, it was a physical therapy, and then I had at one to 1:30, it was lunch, and then I would
Get
repeat
your
the whole.
Jello. Get your Jello then. They always give you
Or
Jello
this
in the
or the
hospital. I don't know
NutriCheck.
why, but yeah.
What's that? Oh, well, you're. I don't know what you just said.
Oh, I said you always get Jello at lunch in the hospital for some reason. I don't know why they're so up on giving everybody Jello. I mean, I'm sure you got something else, but
I
there's
don't
always
know
Jello.
why is that. By the way, I
I think
noticed that.
Jello
Like,
must be like have some kind of stranglehold on the healthcare system or something. Oh, there everybody gets Jello or something like that. So I don't know. Weird.
yeah, I don't get why they have that. Like, that's another thing. Like, I don't understand. Like, what's the point of getting Jello? Like,
I
are they
don't
trying to make
know.
you
It's kind of like a
like?
dessert, but it's not too heavy.
No, well, I remember drinking NutriShares. Those are bad. Like, those
Yeah.
taste horrible. You know.
Hmm.
So that was my lunch, and so then in the afternoon, we repeated the same cycle, and then I would end at 5:30, and I was like, I was wiped
Yeah, you'd be
when I
exhausted after all that.
holy cow. And it's like, all right, this is kind of, and there were moments where I wanted to give up, but I knew if I were to give up, I'd be going probably to a nursing home.
Yeah. Oh no, you don't want to do that. Now, let me ask you a question. This is a weird question, but so you had to relearn how to talk and everything. Did you have any recordings of yourself prior? Do you know if you sound different?
Yeah, I don't have recordings. That.
Okay, I would think that if you went through something like that, because when you relearn, right? So
Hmm.
then there can be you're not necessarily going to talk exactly the same way or have the same cadence and so forth because you're starting all over again. And so that really your environment, I think, would play a role in that. And so therefore, you may sound different because you're you know redoing it. So I'm surprised you don't sound more southern because you were doing that in Texas, and so therefore, my guess is your speech therapist was probably from the area, and so therefore you would have more of a twang
Yeah.
because they have a twang, and you're practicing, so you're just repeating whatever they're telling you to.
Yeah. Aren't you from the South, though?
No, I'm not. I'm from Illinois.
Illinois? Which, like Chicago area?
No, no, middle of Illinois, Decatur,
Like,
Illinois.
oh, Bloomington. That's where you're from.
Yeah, well, you can say Bloomington, but yeah,
Is
I'm
it
not.
Bloomington?
I didn't grow up in Bloomington, but yeah,
What?
that
How did?
area.
Okay. So, so either way, so what happened was that because of well, I also had two speech therapists, though too. I mean, that's pretty hard when you have two speech therapists from two different
Sure.
areas.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, and then I also had like a speech therapist that would talk about music and talk about podcasting and talk about all that. And
Oh wow. This is okay. I don't. This is really a eye opener thing because so basically, I mean, how long ago was this for you?
this was what happened in 2019, 2020, and 21. It happened a couple years
Oh
ago.
my gosh! Get out of town. So I mean, I've talked to you for at least a year or more at
Yeah.
different times. So this is like pretty fresh. I mean, this is during COVID
Yes, it was, and it sucked.
because then you don't get to see anybody because they
No.
locked everything down during that time.
So
So
I was yes, and I was during COVID, and that was one interesting thing. That was mask was everywhere, and
mhm.
it was weird. With the whole mask stuff, and I was like, and luckily we were in Texas, so like it had still like strict lockdowns and stuff. But man,
Hmm.
it surely was odd.
So
Uh,
then, so then this is still. I guess you were at that point until it happened. You were still active duty person.
Yes, so pretty much when this happens, when this kind of event happens, you're pretty much. I mean, and I was trying to fight my way to get in, or try to fight my way to still be in the military. But pretty
Hmm.
much once you're done, once this big of a thing, travesty happens, there's no way of rebounding. There's no
Right.
way of like trying to fight it and stuff. So it's more of like, all right, let's start looking for something else. Let's start looking for job opportunities, or let's look at
Right.
colleges, or let's do something else. But it's not going to be the military.
So,
So
so
now you're
just so everybody knows, you were in the Air Force right out of high school.
Yes, I was in the Air Force right after high school. Well,
Hmm.
did you actually know that I was in the Army Reserves I was in the Army Reserves. So when I turned 18, okay,
Hmm.
I say this on my podcast a lot. I did a dumb head or did a pig-headed moment, and it was on my 18th birthday. I told my parents, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go for a drive. I went straight to the Army Reserves recruiter's office, and I
Hmm.
joined the Army Reserves.
Okay.
And I knew I messed up. And so it was interesting because there's more disappointment that comes in mind. Oh, there's more disappointment that comes in mind is when you hand your mom like a pamphlet saying, "Hey, welcome to the army. Your son is now a proud soldier" and stuff.
Hmm.
That's the most amount of disappointment that I saw, and so then I knew I messed up and I knew that I had to fix something. So what happened was that I learned my mistake. I learned from my mistake, and I joined the Air Force because I knew I still want to be in the military, and I knew that I was not ready for college right now. So I joined the
Hmm.
Air Force. So then I transferred over from the Army Reserves to the Air Force.
So can you do that? I didn't realize that was the thing. I thought once you kind of, I guess they don't care as long as you're in, and you basically just transfer your duties from one place to another. I
So
suppose.
actually you can do that. So if you don't
Hmm.
like, for instance, it happens to basic training all the time. If
Hmm.
you're not interested, if you're like, all right, you know what, I'm not interested in the Army Reserves, or I'm not interested. So all you have to do is talk to your first sergeant, and you have to tell them why you're not interested, or you have to tell your
Hmm.
first sergeant why you like. So the only ways that you can get out and get a regular discharge, so just be called a general discharge (DD),
Hmm.
is if you're like, all right, hey, you know what, maybe something big drastic in my life happened, and they give you opportunities. They're like, well, is there a way that we can help you, or is there like a way we can transfer you to a different base, and the list can go on. So they give you as many excuses as you can to make you get in, so
Right.
then,
Right.
or to make you stay in. And if that
Right.
doesn't work, then here's where the catch is. Then they go and then they make your life a living
Right.
doesn't they make your life miserable and your way out on your out processing. So then they slow step your out process,
Right.
so it's miserable. But mine was very fast and convenient. And so
Well,
what
because you were
happened was,
staying in, and so you actually upped you upped for a longer term by doing that.
yeah. So I didn't get a DD. So I just got like, hey, I just got transferred pretty much.
Hmm. Yeah.
But I was so glad. If it wasn't without being if it wasn't without being stationed in Japan, I loved the
Hmm.
Air Force. I loved the people. I loved how you can travel. I was stationed at Shepherd Air Force Base, which is in Wichita Falls, Texas. It was
Hmm.
absolutely a great experience. And the interesting part is, so you get a opportunity to get you get an opportunity to pick your duty station.
Hmm.
I put mine at North Dakota as my number one spot. Okay. And
Right.
I also put like all in stateside bases. And once I got my orders, I got Tokyo, Japan. And then I'm like, no. I
Well,
know
I don't
what
know.
was
That
odd.
sounds
And so many
fun,
people,
doesn't it?
it was fun, but it was the people that I was with that didn't make it fun.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
it was the it was it was my command, it was the people I was with that made it like very miserable actually.
Mm,
It
okay.
was not like it was not enjoyable. Like it got to, I mean, I got bullied just from where I was from. Like I got bullied, like I got called a Russian agent, I got called a
Hmm.
Russian communist all the time,
But you're
and it
you're
got to
not
a
from
point where I
Russia,
said to
though,
myself,
are you?
I was born in Russia. I
Oh,
came
you
to
were born
America
in
in
Russia. You're
2006.
naturalized, right?
Yeah, natural. Yes, I'm an American citizen.
Yeah.
And so because I was an American citizen, and it was frustrating because that lingered all along there. It lingered me all along. and
Mhm.
it was, oh man, it was frustrating. And I found out
So,
that the airport.
but I thought you lived in Wisconsin.
So I was stationed. No, so what happened? Okay, so now we're getting to a different part of my life.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So
I'm jumping back
no,
and forth there. Sorry.
yeah, no, you're good. So what happened was, so I was adopted by a family in Bend,
Mhm.
Oregon, the first family. So I was adopted
Gotcha.
twice. So the
Okay.
first family
So,
I was adopted.
okay. So let me ask you a question here. Because actually, I know
Yeah.
some people who were in this same situation, who are probably about the same age as you, oddly enough. So you were born in Russia and you were an orphan, or you and your parents came over, or were you an orphan that got adopted?
So I was in the orphanage at that time.
Yes.
So I
Okay. So
was
I,
in the
I know
orphanage.
several people who came over as orphans from not necessarily Russia, but I mean from communist states.
Yeah. Well, Russia is very well communist.
Yeah, no, but I know,
Uh,
but they're broken up a little bit more now. But yeah, um,
yeah.
so that's
And
interesting.
so
So you came over to Wisconsin. Oh, that's wild.
yeah, and I definitely can tell you, I love the winners. I am a huge
Mhm.
winner, and I posted on Dana Life of Sauce where, if you like, that's on my Instagram and stuff, where I
Mhm.
posted like saying how like right now our trees are changing colors, and another thing is that you don't really. I mean, I noticed how like nature is actually really beautiful, and you don't really notice until like you stop and you actually look at the trees, like you stop in
Mhm.
the moment, and when you're shopping for cars, you find the prettiest colors of trees that you can ever find. You
Right.
know, and and I love the Four Seasons. I'm sure you get the Four Seasons too, but you have more
Yeah,
of a
for the
mild winter there.
most part, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd
because
say
you're
oddly enough, in the St. Louis area, we don't get spring. We get fall,
no.
we get winter, and then it usually goes straight from winter to summer almost.
Do you get the? Do you get? Do your leaves fall off or no?
Oh yeah, yeah, we get the fall. It's happening right now. Yeah, there's all kinds of leaves everywhere. So yeah, but
So
the
you have
spring
the.
is very
So
short. The
you're.
spring is very, very short.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
Okay. So how much snow do you guys get then?
not too much. I mean, year to year, we get some snow, but not like any kind of accumulation. Generally, it snows and then it goes away. It snows again, goes away. So
Oh,
not
okay. So it's like
a foot of snow or 2 foot of snow on the ground would be unusual. Yeah,
because we get a lot of snow.
yeah. Up in Wisconsin, you do. Yeah, it's a lot of snow.
Yeah, yeah. And are you a winter person or no?
I would say I'm a fall person. I love fall where it's not cold, but it's not hot,
Yeah,
and I like the leaves coming out of the trees and it's crunching around and everything. Yeah, I'd say that's my
yeah. And
favorite. Yeah,
campfires and get to like
yeah.
relax and get to go. Yeah.
Sit
And
outside.
the interesting part about camping and stuff. I used to like, I have to do a lot better shape and hiking and stuff. I don't. When I was a kid and stuff, I'm like, we would go on road trips all the time. I'm not a road trip person. I found out. I'm more of a like you fly like, I'm more of a flyer. You fly from point A to point B because it's like short
Hmm.
and convenient. But then I noticed that as you get older, you want to take time in driving.
Hmm.
Driving is more your cup of tea because you get to stop at different your mom and pop towns and like you get to like relax and you really get to see like the world America literally, not just
Yeah,
like you get to watch it, and that's why I find it to be interesting.
yeah, and I mean, yeah, I mean, if you go most of the time, if you fly, you're going from larger city to larger city, and you're not getting to see kind of the small town life that is all around. If you drive, you get to see it. I mean, if you drive,
Well, it
well,
depends if you're on the interstate.
yeah, but still, even on the interstate, I mean, you always get off, but you see fields and a lot of nothing. I mean, if you've driven through Kansas, you can pretty much see a lot of nothing.
What about
Um,
Arkansas?
well, Arkansas. There's only
Yeah.
one. There's only one highway in Arkansas, and it goes from it goes through Little Rock and down to Texarkana. So,
Yeah. I have to say though, I drove to Arkansas and stuff,
mhm.
and holy cow, it was like a brutal drive. Like, and I feel And I was like, you had like hills and valleys, and I'm like,
Hmm.
and I think I got off on the wrong area or something like that because I was like stuck on like a 2 lane road and stuff. So I was like, oh, it was a 1 lane, and the whole entire time I was like slamming on my brakes. Like I think I burned like through my brakes so much driving through Arkansas that I was like, I'm afraid that I'm not going to have any brakes on my way trip back. You know,
Yeah, it's an interesting state. I mean,
it's
it's
yeah,
beautiful. Yeah, there's not a lot of easy travel. It's not like driving in the flat areas, you know.
yeah. Well, and not only that, but like the sunsets in Arkansas
Mhm.
are not that pretty. I found
Yeah.
out. I
Well,
mean,
there's stuff in the way. You don't get to see it for too long.
yeah, and not only that, but you also have like, I mean, that's why I love driving out in the plains, like of Iowa, and driving out in the because I remember driving to Sioux Center, Iowa, which was in
Hmm.
Dort. It was in Dort University and stuff, and I remember driving out there. Oh my gosh, it was gorgeous,
Yeah.
and like I was able to stop and take a picture of the sunset, and it's like, I mean, it was windy. Don't get me wrong, it was very windy, but you really get to see the country, God's country. You know, where you get to see the
Hmm.
plains and you get to see the corn, like
Yeah.
like rustling around, and well, not rustling around, but you get to see something happening. You know,
Yeah, it rustles in the wind, I suppose.
and
If
that's
you're,
and now that, but like I absolutely love the way that happens, like the way how the Midwest, and even it happens in Iowa or in Illinois. But
Mhm.
man, if you go like into and don't get like Chicago, I don't know if you've been to Chicago before,
Oh
haven't
yeah,
you?
been to Chicago
Yeah.
many times. Yeah.
Holy cow, that city, it smells wretched. The city of Chicago. I have,
Have you been to New York?
oh, New York is like a living sunk pump, like a raw sewage. That's how the
Yeah,
best way to
New York
describe it.
smells like garbage and piss.
Yeah. And so what happened is I was down in Chicago. I was in the city, actual city of Chicago. And if you go by CBS 58, which is actually in Chicago, or is I think CBS 27 or something like that. They
Mhm.
had this guy puked all over the sidewalk. I'm like, that is disgusting. And I'm like, and he walked as if it was a normal day. And it was like,
Sure, it
I'm like,
was to
holy,
him.
yeah. And it was like, I was not a like, I'm not a fan how the subway system goes on top of the buildings and stuff, and it makes it
Oh,
like
you don't
more.
like the loop?
I know I don't like the loop at all. It makes it garbage. It makes it like kind of a dreary feeling.
Yeah.
You know,
Hmm.
and now that, but like, I mean, I thought Mayor Lightfoot would do something about the whole crime thing. I'm
Hmm.
afraid that like, I'm like, I have friends in Chicago. I'm like, what do I get you, a bulletproof vest for Christmas or what? Like something.
You know, the funny thing is, though, I would say out of the larger cities that I've been to, Chicago is one of the least uh, worrisome. So, like, you can walk around downtown Chicago and not worry about it too much. Right there
You
on
think
Michigan
you
Avenue and stuff.
are you serious? I would. I mean,
Yeah. Oh no, I was there. Well, it's been I guess 2 years now, but I was there at Christmas 2 years ago, walking around downtown. It was great. Yeah, it wasn't bad
well,
at all.
well, give or take. I mean, look who the mayor was 2 years ago. I mean, and it was not as. I mean, 2 years ago. Wow, was it under a Biden administration or no?
No, it probably wasn't at that
See,
point. I
that's
don't think so.
yeah. See, it
Yeah,
was.
but you're giving to people too much credit. I think. I think it's I think everything ebbs and flows, and depending on budgets and people's commitments and so forth. But yeah, it was pretty nice back then. I mean, St. Louis is a terrible crime rate here, but I'll tell you, I walk around St. Louis. I was, down in where was I at? I was down in Soulard not that long ago, which is
Were you,
just south of the downtown.
yeah, I was told that when I was. It was funny because I have a friend in St. Louis,
Hmm.
and she's like, "Hey," and I was like, "Okay." Once I heard never stop at nighttime in St. Louis.
Well, depending on where you stop, yeah, probably.
You know, because I think St. Louis is a beautiful, but it's a beautiful city, and I
Hmm.
don't know. My favorite city I think I've ever visited. I think, boy, it's really hard. It would have to be Manchester. I don't know why, Manchester, New Hampshire, because
Okay.
it's got like that mom and pop feeling. Like it's not too big of a city. It's one of the
Hmm.
smaller cities of 43,000 people,
Right.
and it's like a very like everybody kind of knows each other, and it's like you have that like kind of a rustic city kind of a atmosphere,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
and it's
New
like
England is great up there. Yeah.
it is, and you go to San Antonio, you go to other major cities, and it's completely polar opposite. I have
Yeah.
to tell you another story. When I went on to Seattle, downtown Seattle,
Hmm.
um, I went and landed in Seattle, and I took a light rail over to downtown. I've
Hmm.
never been afraid of being on the light rail system now
Hmm.
than I've ever been before. And I've been to Seattle a couple times, and
And so,
because what
yeah.
happened is that this person got deranged. There was a deranged individual. Okay,
Hmm.
he was yelling on the subway system, and now that, but then the light rail shuts in. It runs out of power. It had a power outage, and
Uh-oh.
so what happened was that they're like, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, we're sorry about the inconvenience, but we're gonna be here." I'm like, "Great." So now I'm gonna be. I'm like, I was afraid what was going to happen next. It was one of those moments. So I'm like, "All right, I'm not gonna be taking the light rail system back. I'm taking an Uber and a Lyft." And now I wouldn't even touch Seattle if it were the last city on earth. No offense to
Yeah.
people that live there, because you look at it, so many people. Seattle is like a place where you're too overly educated, but you're socially stupid, and you're like you don't know what's going on, and you're so naive to the surroundings.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
haven't been to Seattle in a number of years, so they're a
oh,
long
it's
time ago.
changed.
So.
Trust me, it has. And like you have people like that come up to you and like they don't look at the crime rate. I mean, clearly they forgot what happened to Chavez, what is that like that autonomous zone in Seattle,
Hmm.
and their mayor. And clearly, when you have the police chief resign during 2020, and when you have the police chief resign, a couple of them back to back, and then you elect a bozo mayor that doesn't do anything either besides cater to their own agenda. What do you
Hmm.
think is going to happen? You're not going to have like you're going to have people moving out of Seattle, and that's what's happening.
Right. Oh yeah, I'm
You
sure
know?
that there's a lot of suburbs now around Seattle that are much better off than the city. But
Oh
that's
yeah,
I think that's happening everywhere though. I mean, most places that you any city that you go to, the actual city portion of it is very um, you know, decrepit looking, and then you go out into the suburbs, and that's where all the good stuff is most of the time.
Nashville. I would debate Nashville on that one. Nashville has got a beautiful
Mm.
downtown.
But I think they've done a lot of work to make that happen. I don't think that was always the way it was.
No, I'm sure. No.
Yeah, the problem is that I think as a society, it all changes, right? So, you're in your case, it would probably be your well, not your grandparents because they were Russian, but I mean your adoptive grandparents. Um, probably wanted to live in the city, and then their kids wanted to move out into the suburbs, and so it becomes a cyclical thing where you have this decay and then rebirth. You know what I mean? And so it has always happened. I think maybe not at the speed that it happens today, but even uh, 100 years ago, people are like, "Oh, I don't want to live on a farm anymore. I want to go to the city." And then their kids grow up and they're like, "Gosh, this city's terrible. I want to go to the farm."
Hmm.
And so it just constantly churns. And I think that's also you know, a way for the economy to keep going is to have all this constant movement because then, nobody, everybody's spending, spending, spending. They move
Yeah.
in, they move out, they move, here, they move there. The grass is always greener, as they say, um, with those kind of things. And so then that just all kind of churns and churns.
Yeah.
And it was going to happen, I think, regardless of too many. I mean, certainly certain circumstances push those things, but not. It doesn't have to have all those circumstances. I grew up in a town, Decatur, which was a booming industrial town in the 50s and 60s.
You were born
And,
in the 50s and the 60s?
No, I was not. But the town was
Oh, okay.
booming in the 60s. And
Okay.
so then my parents ended up there because there was a lot going on and there was lots of money and you can get a decent job
Yeah.
and all that. And so then I was born, and then as I got older, it was in the downward trend. And so now it's a city of decay because there's not none of those businesses are still there. I mean, these were big businesses that made car parts
Oh yeah.
and tires and all this kind of stuff, and none of that's there anymore. It's all gone overseas,
Like
and that
Gary,
was within a
Indiana.
generation. Yeah, it was within a generation. So then
Yeah.
there's no reason for me to stay there. I mean, there's nothing there, right?
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, unless you luck into something, I suppose. But there's not like the plethora of opportunity, and so then you move to some place where there's more opportunity. And
Yeah.
so yeah, for me, basically, it was to go to Chicago or to St. Louis because those were the two closest areas of opportunity, and I didn't want to go to Chicago because it's too big. Um, so I ended up in St. Louis.
No, well, I have to, with St. Louis, St. Louis is not. I wouldn't say, is it a booming city still, or is it like more on the
No,
downward
it's
trend?
on the downward trend too. But when I first got here, it was there was more happening. So there used to be, and there still is, because Boeing is still here in St. Louis. But there used to be a whole aerospace industry in St. Louis, as well as there was a Ford plant, a Chrysler plant. There was a lot of economic engines. You know what I mean? Because those kind of things, there's just such a huge amount of money that's associated with them, right? And there's so many people that have to keep that engine running. And now, I mean, Boeing's still here and it's still big, but Ford and Chrysler, Chrysler, I think, still has something here, but not much. The minivan was built in St. Louis. Did you know that?
I
Anyway,
did know that. Yes.
yeah, the first minivans were built in St. Louis, and I mean that was big business for a really long time.
Yeah.
But now there's no Ford plant that went away 20 some years ago, maybe, and that they used to do the Ford Explorer in St. Louis. But anyway, I digress. But what happens is when you have those big engines like that, then you have everything that's ancillary to that, right? So the guy who makes the windshield wipers is close by because he provides windshield wipers. You know what I'm saying? So all
Hmm.
this kind of stuff, and then with the nature of business in the 21st century, all that went overseas, and they're like, well, we can make it a lot cheaper and just pay to ship it over here.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's the real, and not to get into, you know, conservatism or liberalism or anything, but I think the real issue for since we're on this topic, the real issue is that we don't make things here.
That's a fact.
And it doesn't matter what your political bent is on that, because what happens whenever you let go of your manufacturing is that then you let go of all um,
Creativity.
the things that go along with it. So, the car isn't made of one piece, right? The car is made of thousands of pieces, and those thousands of pieces branch out like the internet, like a spider web,
Hmm.
and all those employ people, and you have engineers, and you have higher educated people, and you have people who don't have any education or skilled labor. So whenever you wipe those out, you wipe out a tremendous swath of opportunities.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, that's probably, if I were to say, what's the worst thing that's happened, and the worst thing I think that's happened is our ability to make our own stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm
And
getting into your territory now. I know you love to talk about this kind of stuff, but
yeah, I've got.
let me
I'm
let me
kind of.
take it back though. So
Yeah.
you, we're bouncing around a little bit here, everybody. But let me take it back. So you were paralyzed, and you did all this therapy and everything. So, like the day you were doing okay, what happened? I mean, did they like just throw you out in the world?
Well, so since I was still part of the military and stuff, and since I was in the process of out processing, I went
Hmm.
to so I started doing outpatient. So
Hmm.
outpatient care. So like I would go and do like like outpatient PT, and then I started doing like outpatient occupational therapy. So everything started becoming outpatient. And so
So what do they have you do for? I mean, you're still in the military. They're still taking care of you. So
mm,
the military doesn't like people to not do anything.
that was my full-time job, was getting better.
Oh, really? Okay, so they let you do
Yeah.
that.
Because they knew that I was on my way out. And so they're like, well, you're not gonna we're not gonna you're not going to be needed, so we're going to just make sure that by the time you're out, you are fully capable. Like I mean, it's like nothing ever happened, you
So
know.
so they kind of did you right that way. They didn't just dump you off at the first signs of improvement. They kept you in until you could actually function.
Tried, yeah. And so it was actually a blessing, and it was actually a blessing as well, because that way I could, like, and and then I had to fight and then it became like another, like, kind of a battle, because it like the military tried to pull like something over my head. So like when you're getting out and stuff, they're like your whole benefit stuff. So then they try to
Hmm.
say, hey, you know what, we're gonna put you temporary retirement instead
Hmm.
of like full retirement. So I'm like, okay, whoa, no. What happens if this flares up again? What happens if I get sick?
Hmm.
And logical questions. So I'm like, oh, okay. So then instead of putting a temporary, we're going to put a permanent. So I'm like, sweet. So it's like I've been in for 20 years, but I've actually not. So it became my medical retirement. So
Hmm.
therefore, I had 100% education benefits, and I could go on base if I want to. But when you live in Wisconsin, there's not very many Air Force bases.
Right.
Nearest Air
Right.
Force base to you is Scott Airfield Base in Illinois.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm familiar with Scott. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
nearest one to Wisconsin. Seriously?
yeah, it is. Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I figured there was something up there. It seems
Well,
like
there's
every
an
state has something.
there's Fort McCoy.
Hmm.
Uh, that's in Wisconsin, but that's like, I mean, that's a reserve unit, and that's like
Mm.
way. I mean, uh, Fort McCoy is not even close to where I live, and that's the
Hmm.
thing. You also have Martin Truex Field, which is an Air Force Reserve. So that big whole debacle with the F-35s,
Right.
that was that was in Madison, Wisconsin. And I mean, you go to that reserve unit, like there's somewhat active, but it's not like actual. Like you don't have a clinic on base. You don't have. It's like bare bones. So you have a BX and you have everything else. It's like bare
Right.
minimum. But even that's a 54-minute drive from where I live. And that's you know and so another thing is that because of it, I'm like, all right, you know what? I think I'm not going to be really sticking around base. Because I also noticed that, like, I mean, the base has some good things, but then at the same time, it's kind of a hassle. Going on base, and then
Hmm.
you're not familiar with anyone because you don't have any friends. So it's like, all right, I'm better off just being out in the civilian, just putting that all behind, and that's what I kind of did.
Hmm.
you know. So what happened was I went back to Wisconsin, and then I was looking for colleges. I was like
Hmm.
looking to attend college, and so I went and attended this wonderful college called Nicolay Bible Institute. It's a year-long biblical college,
Hmm.
and it was a college I absolutely loved. And then I was like, okay, I wanted to continue to further my education. So then I went to another Christian college, to another college, and we know how that. If you've been tracking my social media feed, if you've been tracking you probably know how well that ended.
You're fighting with people. So what did you get from the Bible college though? You went for a year, and what did you finish with?
So it was more of getting your general ads out, like your general education out.
So it's kind of like community college in some ways.
It's got like three classes. Well, a little bit more than three classes. It's got four classes.
Hmm.
And you work at a summer camp, and you work during a camp, and I absolutely love it. And I came back, I loved it so much working at the camp that I came back to it again this past
Hmm.
year.
Hmm.
And there's something that, like, it's paying, it rewards itself,
Hmm.
like when the kids are gone, you like have time to spend with your friends. And I learned a lesson, like, even through life and stuff, that there are times where you have to stop and take a moment and, like, okay, I have to live in the now. I can't focus on behind the screen. I can't focus on making content created. I can't focus on that. I want to spend time, and I want to build relationships. That
Hmm.
didn't I didn't get that first time when I went through my very first year of working full time summer staff. I didn't
Right.
get that. Now this time of year, this time around, in this past summer, I did that, and so because of it, I have lifelong friends that now I visit, and I was able to visit last yesterday in
Oh, cool.
Minneapolis, and I was also able to visit her another gal in Illinois in Orland Park
Mhm.
and Naperville. So I was able to visit those kind of friends, and and those friends are going to be lifelong. Those friends are going to be like, hey, you know what, if I ever do get married, or if when I do get married, let me
Mhm.
invite you to my wedding, or let me have you be part of my wedding.
Right. Yeah.
So
No, that's
and,
great.
and those are valuable life lessons. And sometimes we have to. And I'm more of a person that learns the hard way. Sadly, I don't know why, but I've always tend to learn lessons the hard way. You know,
Hmm.
And thank goodness that I didn't have to learn the lesson the hard way, because everybody pretty much all came back after this past summer because they loved it. And it's more of a camp saying, okay, you know what? Because of the hard work, you always say to yourself, okay, this is my last summer. And next thing you
Hmm.
know, you come back next summer. It's
Yeah.
one of those moments. It's one of those love. I wouldn't say a love hate relationship, but it's a stress relationship.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, when it's happening, you're like, but when it's
It's
done,
so
you're like, oh, this was so fun.
Yes, it's one of those. Especially, I did dish crew for 2 years now, and that was a very stressful job. I mean,
Hmm.
you have to like do dishes for 500 people per meal, and that gets like, and you're in charge of people. So if Hobart breaks down, and if you're not getting out enough, or if you're not getting out
Right.
early, then you get. So it's a very stressful job.
Hmm.
And I was like, man, I'm glad that I'm not like working. And so you took those turnover days, and you're like, man, am I glad that I have time with you? Now I can spend time with you guys. Now I can build a relationship with you. But it was when those kids left. But when they got back, when during the camp session, when they was in camp, you really didn't you didn't really hang out with those people very much. It was a very
Hmm.
low amount of people, which
Yeah.
is it was hard to build relationships. And I can tell you though, if you don't have a relationship like in within your own department, that's not a very good relationship. That camp session can drag out forever. I
I'm
didn't
sure. Yeah.
yeah, I didn't, and it was interesting. I didn't know what day of the week it was. I didn't
Yeah.
know what day it was, and so I tried podcasting for a couple of days. Try to do my Christian podcast called "Remember God Loves You," and I'll meet you at the finish line, which is your daily devotions and stuff. That
Hmm.
lasted about 2 days into it, and I was like, okay, this is way too much. Like, it wasn't way too much work, but it took way too much mental energy, because
Hmm.
you work 12 plus hours a day, and by
Right.
the time you're done, you get done at 8 or 9 p.m. at night, and you're like, okay, you know what? I just want to spend time with other people from other.
Right. You want to decompress, right?
Yeah, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to decompress. So that's one way I decompress. So we went out and about in Anago. We went and we saw like movies, and we got to see The Sound of Freedom. So it was absolutely phenomenal, and that's where I started the Day in the Life of Sauce. It's a
Hmm.
mini vlog, I call it, on my social media platforms. But I think that's a hit and miss on certain platforms. But it was interesting, and it was after the camp, after we all left, it was very hard saying goodbye to them.
Now,
Because
now, do all those people come from other places as well? Because I
yes,
mean, so
yes, they do.
you're not like they don't live there or close by. It sounds
No,
like they're all coming from other states and everything
so
too.
some of them come from Florida, number one. Some of them come from like Colorado, Arizona, Ohio. So they come around from. We had two people from Mexico actually that came up to work. So it's
Hmm.
comprised of many people from all like literally all different walks of life from all different states. So
Hmm.
you are like you live up there. You live up there for a whole summer, and you get to interact with them. And so then after you leave, so that whole entire summer, you build a relationship with them. And some people actually do live up there, like
Hmm.
they've always lived up there, so they like be part of summer staff because they just want to be friends and stuff. So they
Right.
some of them live up there, but majority of the workers are nowhere near like not even in Wisconsin. Some of
Right.
them are like
Yeah.
from majority of the workers are from Illinois, actually, from Chicago
Okay.
area.
That's interesting. So this kind of tells me, I kind of wondered this. So you like to travel around. You've gone. I mean, you pop up in the weirdest places. It seems like, and is it because of the incident of the experience that you were like so stuck for so long there that now you just want to go everywhere?
Well, I mean, the reason why I want to, so for instance, like when I went to Nashville, Tennessee, when I
Mm-hmm.
went to Minneapolis and stuff, I want to continue building those relationships that we built off. So I went
Mm-hmm.
to Liberty College to spend time with some friends I worked up there this past summer, because now I want to like fine tune our relationship to like where it's like, okay, you know what? When we leave, when we leave, when I leave off of like our relationship, so when we interact again, it's like we never left again. It's like we
Mm-hmm.
never left. So we can leave off of our conversation, instead of, hey, you know what, how have you been? Or like, so you're not like treading around. So it's that
Mm-hmm.
kind of relationship. So like that's why I go to Chicago. Well, that's why I'm like around. I visit Chicago. Like I took a whole week in Chicago
Mm-hmm.
to like we had a big summer end of the summer party, and then and I went around other people's houses and got to spend time with them, and really got to spend time with their family. So you get to like build a bigger relation. You get to build a bigger network around you and stuff. And it
Mm-hmm.
was a very cool experience because then they got to see the non-camp of you. They got to see like your
Right.
style of non-camp, because it was funny because I wore my camp style. I ended up wearing like um I ended up wearing an orange shirt with my Air Force shorts on, and that was like I had 4 pairs of each. So each camp session came around, and then I had like working shorts and stuff, my regular like shorts, cargo shorts. That ended up being my outfit. So then I had to do like laundry 3 or 4 times a week because I would go through so many of the clothes. And I did pack light, by the way. I packed very light, and that was
Mm-hmm.
another lesson I learned from a year before, because it's not about fashion when you go out there; it's about the kids. That's
Right.
number
Right.
one.
You're there to kind of do a job
Yeah, you're not there
and
to look good.
yeah. So so then so you're doing that. So you're talking about building relationships and so forth. So what's the you know what's I mean, other than it's nice to know people, is there an end game for this? Are you planning something going forward, and that's why you want to do this, or is it just because you want to do it?
Well, so there's some. Okay, I'm gonna try how to say this. I'm gonna try to be careful. I okay,
Just say
so
it. Don't worry about it. Just say it.
okay. I mean, ooh boy, how do I? Man, there's like so much to say. That's a big question. I mean, I think it's important that like you surround yourself with friends that you care for. There's important because you go through difficult times in your life. You go
Hmm.
through like times where um
Your
you
kidneys
go
don't
through.
work.
Or you go through like those ups and downs. You go through like, and you never know if a person also like another person might be going through their ups and downs. So when you have that important relationship, you can be there for each other, for the
Hmm.
good moments, for the happy moments. So for instance, when they have a wedding, you can get invited to their wedding then, or you can be part
Hmm.
of their wedding because you've already built a relationship with them.
Right.
Or if you want to have a Christmas party, or if you want to like have a big like gathering, you are then invited, and because you built that fine-tuned relationship. And it's
Hmm.
about and it's also about networking too. If a cool job opportunity comes up, because that friend, like, hey, I know a friend that likes to, like, for example, if they have a news agency, they're like, oh, I have a friend that loves the news and loves podcasts. Why don't you give him a call? So it's
Hmm.
all that networking stuff. It's very fascinating. I mean, it's very fascinating to like learn about.
So now I have to say this, Sauce, because it's interesting the way you're talking about that. But I think a lot of people, and I would say I would take a guess that the majority of the people don't even think about those things. They just I met somebody and I talked to them, and then it progresses in a way without any kind of thought to it. You know what I mean? So, for just to give you an example, right? So I have a friend that I have known now for oh gosh,
It's
let me think
Miles.
about this. No, well, I've known Miles since 1990. But so I mean, I've known him since that long. But whenever we first met and everything, I didn't even think he actually was invited to my wedding. And I was invited to his, but neither one of us showed up. But that's a whole other story. But I've had friends that were older than that, and I still talk to, but there was never any thought about it. It just happened, right? And I didn't think about in the future. Like I just went to lunch with a friend of mine a week ago that I've known since 1980, and we're still friends, right? But in 1980, I was very young, but we didn't think about these kind of things, but you're thinking about these things. Why do you think that you are thinking about these things when a lot of other people, it just kind of just flows, and you don't even realize it later, you know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
But you don't
I think
realize it at the time.
no, I think it has to deal with the way I was growing up, the way that I grew up. Because
Hmm.
my dad's a pastor and my mom's a music teacher.
Hmm.
And when your dad is a pastor, when your mom is a choir teacher, it's I mean it's phenomenal. And now that, but then when I also was like, I mean, my family is like very well, like, I mean, they care like about building relationships. They want you
Hmm.
to like have healthy relationships.
Hmm.
So if you surround yourself with friends, well, and now that, but when you surround yourself with healthy friends and surround yourselves with friends that are going to be networking, you are therefore going to be motivated to be like set goals and achieve them compared to
Hmm.
people that you don't like surround yourself with friends like that are going to be like encourage you along the way and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? I'm thinking about going on this trip. What do you think about it? Or I'm thinking about doing this job. What are your thoughts?
So you're
If you
saying that hanging around with somebody who just smoked pot all day was not a good choice?
no, no, they don't influence. They influence you in the negative way. They they influence you in the negative. They influence you, and most of the time, they make you start an addiction that you don't want to like. That's hard to break. You know,
Hmm.
And I mean, if you surround yourself with people that are like more on top of it, you're therefore going to mature faster. You're going to mature like quicker compared to somebody that is
Now,
less
so
mature.
is this would you say that this is a philosophy that you got from
Parents,
your
yes.
parents? Okay. I'm just curious because I mean most people don't have this kind of insight, Sauce. I want to be honest with you. You're not a very old guy, but you're talking about old
I feel
guy
like I'm old.
things.
I'm well. Another thing is I also have to give this credit to my grandpa. My grandpa
Hmm.
was I loved my grandpa a lot. I remember going to him like when my grandma was on dialysis. I remember going to him with him to McDonald's on Saturday mornings.
Hmm.
I would spend the night at my grandpa's house, and I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we
Yeah.
go down. So we got drop off my grandma at dialysis, and then we would go to McDonald's with the old guys. They're considered
Right.
old guys, and they gave me so like they're like, hey, how's it going? And it's like you have to like mature quicker because they don't want to talk to you if you're not really mature. So you have to like really like
Yeah.
grow
Well,
like
they're talking about stuff that means something to
practicality.
them, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. They're not talking about the Star Wars figures or
yeah,
something.
or not, and they don't talk about Legos. And then
Right.
now that
Legos. That's better. Legos. Yeah.
yeah, and it's so I therefore had to like it was also through my grandpa. My grandpa gave me also very wise like very wise tips on stuff. So for instance, like he's like, if you want to live a good retirement, never smoke or drink because you might as well
Hmm.
you're not going to live a very good life because majority of it you're probably going to be spending more of it on health insurance, like on healthcare, more than
Hmm.
anything, or you're going to spend it more on your addiction. So if you stay away from that kind of stuff
Hmm.
you're then not gonna you're gonna to be a you're gonna most likely stay away from that kind of environment because you want to like you want to that's always on the back of your head. For instance, I mean, like this philosophy, a lot of
Hmm.
young people buy brand new used cars or not
Right.
brand new cars. They buy
Right.
brand new
Waste
cars,
of money.
waste of money, and that's why I'm more of I hate car payments, and
Hmm.
you can buy a brand new car when you're retired because you've worked all your life and you're going to treat yourself. But right
Hmm.
now, as a 25-year-old now, I can say all I care about is getting from point A to point B and making sure
Hmm.
that my car is like doesn't break down on me. Number one, doesn't like
Right.
cause me in any harm, and or I don't cause harm on other people. So
Hmm.
get me something. I mean, is it going to have high mileage? Absolutely. I mean, that's with everything though,
Right.
and not only that, but like at 25, am I going to get a nice car so I can show off to everyone? Ooh, cool. But then I'm not going to have a good retirement because I'm going to be more focused on paying that interest off and the
Right.
car payment
Pay the
off.
car. Yeah. Hmm.
And don't forget about the high insurance rate that's going to come with it. Getting a
Right.
brand new car. So I mean, I've also was taught like with this lesson through my dad. Always buy used cars if you don't like. If you're worried about like if you want to save money, the best way to do it is pay in cash. You always have
Hmm.
to like save money on the side in the savings account, pay
Hmm.
cash, and then there you don't have to worry about car payments. You don't have to worry about like
Right.
insurance rates. You don't have to worry about hard inquiry from a creditor because you want to take money out. You don't have to worry about that, you know.
Right. Yeah, definitely. That's all great advice. I'm surprised that that's why I say you're talking like an old man rather than a young man.
Oh, I feel like I'm old at times. I feel like I'm very old. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are days, and it was funny because uh, we went hiking the other day, and like when I was in New Hampshire, we went hiking. I was like, and they joked about it, like, wow, the young one is like outwinded already, and we're like about a couple hundred feet up. Like, we were a couple hundred feet like into the like we were about like 2 or 3 football yards like into our hike, and I was like
Hmm.
huffing and puffing, and the older people are like like double my age, and or actually triple my age, and I
Hmm.
felt so embarrassed. So I'm like, okay, I'm like way out of shape, and of course
How
by my
high up were you? That's the other thing.
it was a ski slope, so we were not very
Yeah.
high at all. It
Oh,
was not
okay.
high.
You might be- Okay.
Uh, it was more like hiking on rocks. That's where I was at. So
Mm, okay.
I do have to admit that I was out of shape, and it gave me a reality check. Say, okay, you know what? Maybe you need to start going on those walks, and you need to actually get like stay away from like the sugars and start staying away from like
Yeah.
the sugar things and get more on the healthier route.
Sugar's a killer.
It is. I noticed that. Like, I noticed if you and the weird part is I was doing so good about staying away from sugar, but then it's like it's so addictive. That's a problem.
Right. It's just like drinking and smoking, honestly.
Yeah, yeah. Caffeine's actually the worst of it all. You know.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm going to have to let. Well, I hate to doing this, but we should do this again.
No, it's okay. It's a little over an hour. I was going to wrap it up here, but I mean, real quick here. So, tell everybody where they can find you, so we get
Oh,
that
absolutely.
in.
So people can find me on TikTok, Sauceman1776. They can find me on Facebook, Soslan Teemanson, at Instagram, Real Soslan Art, Teemanson Art, and then Twitter is Real Teemanson Art, Temanson. And then I am also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you see podcasts. Just put
Mhm.
the SOS report and you'll find me. I post wonderful content. I have some interviews. I have more, it's a news slash society podcast and a Christian
Mhm.
podcast, but you're more welcome to give her a follow and give her a listen, and you'll never, and also stay along with my vlogs. You'll always be wondering, okay, where's he at today now, or
That's
what's going to
right.
come out of his mouth per
Where's
se.
Sauce at? Yeah.
Yeah, that should be a game. Where is Sauce?
Yeah.
Just like
Where's
where's
Sauce
Waldo?
today? You travel around so much. I'm a bit envious that you get to travel so much because I enjoy the traveling. I don't enjoy being away from home, which is kind of a weird irony of it. But I do like going different places. But the hard part is being away from home. But no, everybody, check out Sauce's stuff. He is an interesting guy, and it's so. I mean, you've gone through. I didn't realize you've gone through this much. I guess, and it's really interesting. But keep doing what you're doing, and yeah, we'll double back and talk again. All right.
Yeah, we should. So, alrighty, thank you so much, and remember to keep it saucy.